we are going to be talking about trauma and relationships. That is the main topic of this. But I want to mention a few things real quick regarding me, my content, and the updates in relation to that. First thing, do you guys remember Cool Math games? If you grew up in like the mid to late 2000s, you probably and were in school at this time, you probably remember it or played it. If you don't remember it, well, I was feeling a little bit nostalgic this month, so I decided to go back to it and play the a few different games on the website, and I recorded that and made that into a video. So it premiered today. So of course, after this live stream, go check out that video on my YouTube channel where I kind of revisit cool math games and see what it's like. So very funny stuff, some really hilarious ads if nothing else. But yeah, it was a very, very good time. I actually recorded this video twice because the first time the audio just was not working because the game music was too loud and all that stuff. So that was fun. Uh, and then don't forget while you're there on YouTube to check out my 10K live stream. So I recently got over 10,000 subs on YouTube, and I celebrated that with a live stream that went to both YouTube and TikTok. So it is on there for you to enjoy. Got a little bit controversial because I was asked about my thoughts on the Pope and AI. So that kind of went all over the place, but it's okay. It was a very fun stream. So don't forget to check that out as well. Now, while you're on TikTok, of course, you can feel free to check out my TikTok shop. So I have both nerdy and Christian products on my store. So you guys can go there and check out a product that you may enjoy. It is all over the place, of course, because my content is variety content. So you will eventually see products on there about gaming. I have some wrestling stuff on there. There's, of course, like little Jesus figures and all sorts of stuff on there for you guys to check out. Now, hi. Erin, you can go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your expertise.
All right. Well, thanks. Yeah, I've spent about 20 years as a marriage and family therapist. My specialty is trauma. It's been trauma since like I was a little baby therapist, and I actually kind of retired the license this past year, and I'm working more on coaching, which is like very centered in the present and getting you through the day. And what do we need to do to get your goals, get clear on them, and focus more on that than the past, although it's always going to be trauma informed when it's with me. So like, you're still going to get some therapy, but you're also going to get some just like coaching, simple things that you can do to advance, whatever it is you're hoping to advance. And so, yeah, I'm also a facilitator and an educator for psychedelic therapies and plant medicines. So that can get me into a little bit of trouble here. So we probably won't talk about it a whole lot. Because I know how sensitive the algorithm gods are, and we don't want to anger them. So,
Yes.
but if you have questions about that, I have found things to be extremely helpful for trauma, for bipolar, for anxiety, depression, and they tend to speed up the process of therapy greatly. So I think that there's a lot of hope for the future in those things. So, feel free to reach out to me, like I said, and I'll answer your questions happily. So really, yeah, I just kind of focus now on helping people, community organization, and getting involved in resistance because I can't not. I try to stay contained and calm, but sometimes you just got to go yell into the void. So.
Yeah, I definitely hear you on that one. So, a lot of questions for here for you today. My first one though is what drew you into studying trauma and relationships. Of course, there's no shortage of things you could help people with as a therapist. So why those two as a focus?
Well, I always was drawn to work with relationships, with family relationships, couples, siblings, friends. Like, I think relationships are absolutely fascinating, and the dynamics between them can change so quickly. And so I was always kind of drawn to that, which is why I did the marriage and family therapy, line. But I always wonder, where does this all come from? How does this start? And I so happened to attend a training in like 2004 by a therapist named Bessel van der Kolk. And as far as nerdy therapists go, for having like rock stars, he's our nerdy celebrity therapist rock star.
Hmm.
He actually has a brilliant book called The Body Keeps the Score, which explains
Oh,
how
he's that author.
yeah, so he's actually
Okay.
yeah, I'm very fortunate. I got to take a training from him. My clinic sent me to it. I had no idea what I was doing. I was a little baby therapist, just graduated, and it
Mm,
completely just took over. It made so much sense. And this was before he had written the book, but he was in the process
mm,
of writing it. And so, fortunately, he lives in Massachusetts. I'm in Connecticut, so he does give trainings close by enough that I've been able to go to a few. And since that day, I just knew like trauma's the focus. That's the root. Are there some biological, chemical reactions? They're great, sure, yeah, but most mental illness and suffering comes from trauma, and it doesn't have to be I went to war. Trauma doesn't
hmm
have to mean there was a horrible accident or I was terribly abused. Trauma can be pretty ordinary things that we don't necessarily think of as trauma. But if it's something that affects us, if it's something we can't control or get away from, then it could certainly become a trauma. So that's kind of where I started.
Gotcha. Yeah, and this relates to another question I'd like to ask. You we kind of understand. Well, I should say we know what relationships are. How deeply we understand them, of course, kind of depends. But there, I have seen a lot of misconceptions about trauma, and this was talked a little bit about in a different live stream I did also with a therapist who specialized in trauma and trauma crisis stuff and all of that. But would you help us understand like what is trauma and how does that get defined in the field?
Yeah, essentially, trauma is an injury that we can't see. It's a wound to our subconscious, and it actually becomes a neurological reality, depending on how our brains process it. So, in the therapy world, we have what we call big T and little T traumas. So, big T traumas, we know what those would be. That would be the war zone. That would be the assault or the abuse or the big things that everyone understands. The little T's are trickier. The little T's are things we might beat ourselves up over because it upsets us and it hurt us so much, and we just think there's something wrong with us because it hurt us so much, which doesn't help. We're never going to beat ourselves up into feeling better. That's not a thing. Um,
Yeah.
so recognizing that, for you, trauma might have been your parents getting divorced. Trauma might have been not having enough food. Food insecurity, housing insecurity, body insecurity, all of it is detrimental. So our brains really just they do the best they can. They get the information, but if we're a child, you have to understand the child brain doesn't understand things in shades of black and gray and white and all the beautiful colors in between. It is just simple black and white. My fault, not my fault. I'm lovable, I'm not lovable. And
Mm,
this stuff goes deep, deep. So recognizing that you're not imagining that. You're not crazy or weak. Like, this is an injury. If you could see it with your eyes, like, you would get it.
mm, yeah, yeah, very understandable. So, how has your understanding of the subject of trauma and relationships changed and evolved over the course of your practice?
I think it's definitely remained a core value of the practice, and empathy and compassion and compassionate curiosity in relationships being kind of a
Mm,
key that can help people understand and relate to each other better. Um, I've also, done a lot of training. I'm a fearless living life coach. So the thing that changed my life from, from having PTSD and panic disorder and almost like borderline agoraphobia, like I became a therapist in no small part because of my own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned about this thing called fearless living, and uh, it changed my life really, because it talked about stuff that even my very, very talented and smart therapists never talked to me about. Things like expectation and forgiveness. We all have expectations. You grew up in the family you grew up in, and the way you grew up, you just expect, especially as a child, that everyone did it like that. And then you get a little bit older and you look around and you're like, wait a minute, my best friend's family is different than my family, so that means somebody has to be wrong. Uh, and that's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
internal mechanisms. So we might expect that if our partner really loves us or really knows us, they'll know how to love us and they'll speak our language. But they might not, because in their family, maybe they showed love in a totally different way. Maybe they didn't show it at all. Maybe they didn't have two parents to learn from. So, we just expect they know, oh, I really, it means so much to me that you have made the coffee in the morning, but your partner doesn't do that. And you're mad at them for not psychically knowing you wanted them to start the coffee.
Mm-hmm.
That's where an expectation can bite you in the butt. And it obviously happens on bigger, deeper levels in relationships like money, sex, children, child raising. So many expectations come along with those things. And then there's also cultural norms and expectations. Like relationships are complicated, people are complex. So
Mm-hmm.
um, that's been a core of explaining and getting people to recognize when they're having an expectation and when trauma is being a part of a reaction. That can really bring couples together.
Mm. Yeah, on the subject of the of curiosity, and I know he's controversial. We're gonna save our opinions, but if nothing else, I did learn this from him, and it was very fascinating to hear this. I heard Jordan Peterson talking at one point, and he said like approach everyone as if you genuinely have something to learn from them, right? Approach them with a curiosity, and that did change like how I approach people, and at least in my subjective being, it's made things a lot easier for me to, have those relationships and stuff because I start immediately interested in the person. And that, like, yeah, that goes a long way for sure. Um, so you alluded to this a little bit, but what personal experiences do you have that has informed your approach to therapy or your desire to perform this practice?
I think just growing up and living in a world that I like never fit in with ever was pretty transformative. And then, just coming from like birth order in a family, like me being the oldest of like everyone, cousins, siblings, and like the separation between me and the rest of them definitely affected me. And I didn't really realize that much till somewhat recently. And
Mm.
then living through the opioid crisis in the mid 90s and late 90s, because yeah, I'm old. Yeah, I'm old. That definitely shook me because I think I was pretty sheltered as a kid. My parents did a really good job. And there was lots of things that I genuinely like didn't know anything about. And so the
Mm.
opioid crisis like shocked me. Like, oh my God, people really do this. This isn't just on TV. Oh, and then it happened to people that I loved. And I lost
Mm.
relationships and I lost people. And I, unfortunately, in many ways, blame myself for that subconsciously, which definitely messed me up. That definitely didn't help. I started having panic attacks when I was 19. I was a sophomore in college. When like
Mm.
the love of my life, my high school sweetheart, my everything said, hey, I have a problem. And basically our relationship evaporated overnight. And I didn't handle it very well.
Mm.
So, that's when I started really having the panic attacks and the agoraphobia. And I was living in a college dorm at the time, which was not optimal, but
Yeah, not for that.
no, yeah. So everybody got to watch the show, and so yeah. As soon as I got out of there and could find a good therapist, I started doing that, and I was like, "This is helpful.
Hmm.
He is smart. This is good." So I got intrigued, and then I worked with kids. Actually, I went to music school, but I didn't follow that path. I jumped into special education and wanted to work with
Mm,
kids. Kids just like were it. That's why I did everything so that I could work with them and help them because I wanted to be the adult I needed when I was a kid for these kids.
mm,
Uh,
yeah.
but like the teaching path just really didn't resonate as deeply as like I would notice the kids therapist would come down because I worked in like clinical day schools and residential schools. Like I didn't work in like the nice regular ed classrooms. No, no interest, none whatsoever. I wanted to be with the kids that were throwing chairs, with
Mm,
the ones that were really angry, the ones that were really hurting. And so that I had started a master's in special ed and I switched and said, you know what, I want to do the therapy thing and be there for them. So um,
mm.
that's kind of how that happened. So, and their influence on me has been tremendous. Honestly, working with kids is life changing. So it opens you up to a lot of things.
Yeah, I definitely admire you for that. I to this day, I'm like 22. I had to think about that. I still remember my elementary school counselor because like I would get bullied a lot, and so there was a lot of anger there and all that stuff. And like even just that, she was so helpful in the space that she created in her work area, I don't even know what to call it, was so nice and so helpful. So that was a pretty nice time in my life for sure. Um, so what therapeutic models and approaches did you find effective when treating trauma? And so it really there's a question underlying this because we're not pursuing psychology degrees. What are some therapeutic models and approaches? And then what ones did you find most effective in your practice?
Okay, yeah, there are a few. I specifically was trained in what's called systems theory, which is essentially that everything is a system. Like if school, home, work, social life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they're all, they all affect each other. So in a family system, if one person is sick, everyone in the family is going to feel it. Everyone's going to experience it and it's going to be completely different. So recognizing that we're all connected, everything is connected. And if you're failing in one place, but doing really well in another, like this is a thing that you should probably investigate. So just recognizing that, yeah, you don't live in a bubble. What you do matters. It affects other people. It can be kind of life changing. There's another model I use parts of called DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy. And that is essentially to help people with like self-injury, self-harm, SI, and it's a series of interventions and acronyms that you can sort of call upon. I may be butchering this, but there's one called HALT. The word HALT, HALT. So if you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, you should not be making a decision.
Mm,
It's like how ways to check in with yourself. And there's a lot of hands-on work that happens with DBT. Things like knitting, crocheting, creating art, creating
mm,
anything really that gives you an outlet to get your feelings sorted out and to ground you. Because these urges that happen, they will go away if you're able to distract yourself from them. So
mm,
that practice can it's the best practice I think for trauma and for personality disorders and any kind of disorder that involves impulses. It's good for OCD as well, and anxiety and depression. It's a beautiful beautiful system. I think probably the most popular one people hear about all the time is CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy.
mm-hmm,
And that's a very organized system of therapy. There are workbooks, there is homework, there are specific tasks to be done to basically overcome thoughts that are irrational. Recognizing that the thought that you're having about, I touched the counter, now I'm going to die of diphtheria, is not a rational thought. And interrupting that thought, it's used a lot for OCD and PTSD, to help replace irrational thoughts with rational. To me personally, I don't know that it goes deep enough, but insurance companies love it. Oh, they love it. So, did they do the homework? Yes or no? They love that. But my personal favorite therapy model for PTSD is called EMDR, and you've probably heard of this. It's gotten a lot of coverage, I think, over the past few years. It's a model that's been around since the 80s, and it utilizes your eye movements to help you reprocess and desensitize from disturbing or upsetting events. And this is the model that I use with people. And there's a few different ways to do it. Some therapists, they have a light bar, and you watch it as it goes back and forth by just moving your eyes, not your head. I use little tappers that vibrate, and when your eyes are closed and they vibrate, it makes your eyes go back and forth. We use varying speeds to help you process and desensitize, as well as to download neutral kind of thoughts that will help balance. EMDR is a physiological model that does change your neural pathways. So for trauma, it's kind of the fastest method used by therapists. And I know it sounds a little crazy. I describe it as a bit like lucid dreaming, where you call upon a disturbing or upsetting memory. You and the therapist talk about it. You set up a scene, a scenario. You use all of your senses to remember that moment, and then you let it play out, and you feel the feelings. And it's a lot about noticing the body. Bessel van der Kolk, your central nervous system, onto trauma. So noticing where in your body does it show up for you physically when you think about this incident. What emotions come up? Name them, and let them come up really, really strong. Let them come and withstand that, and then it will actually help you feel so much lighter and better very quickly, because you're sort of deactivating the landmines that get caught in our neural pathways as we walk them throughout the courses of our lives. We kind of just do the same thing, and that can get very messy. That can get very just full of debris, really. So the EMDR helps you get off those old pathways. They're gonna heal. They're gonna grow back up. They're fine. You're gonna start walking on a neutral pathway based on something simple like I'm okay. I'm still alive. That wasn't my fault. Basic, simple stuff, and you actually will then have deactivated the cortisol and the adrenaline that come out during a trauma that remain in the central nervous system. So until the brain gets the message subconsciously that it really is over, you really are okay, it's going to keep those chemicals active. So when you get into the subconscious and it goes, oh my God, it really is over. Okay, great. Whew, those chemicals deactivate. And you're able to look back upon the situation, recognizing like, yeah, that was sad. That was terrible, but it doesn't ruin my day anymore, is the goal of EMDR. Yeah.
Is that a practice that you have done?
Oh yeah, for many years. Yeah, I was a patient of it first. And I think I was like your age. And I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know anything. My therapist told me nothing. Just hold on to others and imagine the memory and feel it, let it come up. She guided me through. I was very nervous about I was taking a trip to Mexico. I was terrified because I had never I'd been to Canada, but I've really not left the country much. And I was scared they wouldn't have ginger ale. I was scared they wouldn't have saltine crackers. I freaked out because I was
this is valid.
Alone, panic mentality.
Yeah.
But I had family there. I had family, and they wanted me to come. And I had the best trip of my life because my therapist did EMDR with me and downloaded downloaded the word relax into my subconscious so that when I say the word relax, I feel it, because all the
Mm,
words we use have neurological impulses attached. So when you say a word, you're going to feel it. Like you'll notice a
mm,
difference. If I say relax, you think of that. And then I say serenity, you think of that. You might feel a little difference between the two. You may prefer one over the other. And so why not use that? So that's also a part of EMDR. The balancing is we process the scary stuff and we also then input the positive, the healing, the comforting stuff that is going to allow you to move on.
gotcha. Yeah, very fascinating stuff. I mean, I've taken a intro to psych class here at Grace, my university. I've taken also this semester, I took counseling and coaching where they combined like ministry students and psychology students together because they felt like if you teach the soft skills to them in some of these models like systems theory and these other things, that even ministry students would be able to use those, and obviously psych students could as well. Um, and there's obviously related skills and even legal matters and stuff. So very fascinating stuff. But my point in saying that is to say that this is all ringing a bell for me. Uh, uh, and so it's been very interesting, especially the idea of like words. It's not just this idea that like words have power, or that you necessarily mean that in a spiritual sense, but that if someone says a word, that you're actually going to feel it in your body. Um, very very interesting there. Um, so one of the relating to both trauma and relationships, one of the traumas that's really hard to overcome is relational betrayal. So obviously that comes in all shapes and sizes and forms, but does one, how do you build trust with a client, especially if they have gone through that?
I mean, generally, people come in and it's really up to them if they want to build trust with me or not. Like I tell them, this is confidential and that I use, uh, unconditional positive regard. Whatever you say, I'm not going to judge you. I've been doing this a very long time. You're not going to traumatize me or shock me. You're fine. And then I also have really cute dogs that are a part of the session. Um,
Aw.
and they just are like great little comforters and icebreakers, and people see me interacting with them, and like I think that's helpful because when I go to someone's house and I see the way they interact with their animals, that tells me a lot. When I see how their animals behave,
Yeah,
a lot.
yeah, that's definitely
So,
wisdom there.
yeah. So, I just try to stay consistent with them and you know, no pressure. If you don't want to talk about the thing, we don't have to talk about it. It's fine. There's plenty of stuff we can talk about. People come in nervous, like they can do therapy wrong, like they're gonna mess it up. And I'm like, no, no, you're
Yeah,
not. That's not your job
yeah,
to worry about. That's the therapist's job to worry about. And I got you. I'm gonna ask you questions and encourage you to tell me if there's some things you want me to do or talk more about, and try to empower them. Because I tell them also, I don't want to keep you stuck on my couch for 20 years. Like I want you out there living your life.
right.
So
We
like,
uh we actually joked about that in counseling and coaching class, and this was also brought up as one of the legitimate concerns from one of the students. I imagine it has to be tempting in this profession, especially if you go in for a reason other than maybe something that's personal to you, to use people's issues to keep them on the couch and keep earning money.
oh yes, that's a very real thing. There's a lot of therapists that are just dialing it in, letting that insurance keep paying, and
Hmm.
they're not invested in like really changing the quality of life for people. So yeah, if you feel like that's happening, you can either call it out or just find a new therapist.
Yeah.
You don't get in trouble. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, 100%. So, uh, what techniques did you use to regulate people's nervous systems? And within this question, of course, there might need to be some explanation, like, okay, what is a nervous system, and then how does that relate to, of course, trauma and relationships? and so thus you can explain why it's important to regulate.
Yeah, I mean, I generally think in terms of the amygdala and the limbic system of the brain, which controls your fight or flight response, which is connected to the vagus nerve, which is the largest nerve in our body. It starts right about at the base of our skull and it goes all the way down on our legs, actually, the back of our legs. And the vagus nerve controls things like your heart rate and your breathing. And if you're able to recognize, oh my God, I'm in fight or flight, like I've been triggered, something told my amygdala that I'm in danger. And it could be just emotional danger, it could be real danger, it could be imagined danger. Your brain doesn't know between real and imagined. If you believe something strongly enough, your brain is going to act as if that is happening, and it's going to give you what it thinks you need. So
Mm.
recognizing, oh, okay, I've been triggered. My fight or flight response is happening. I can feel the adrenaline. My heart is starting to pound. Ways to sort of regulate that. There's some breathing techniques that we use with the vagus nerve. There even hot and cold therapy on the back of your neck. A good old ice pack can go a super long way. Splashing your face with cold water and just shocking it, into rhythm again, basically.
Okay, so is that where because I've seen people like they'd be tripping out of something in a movie or they'd be on some sort of um they might be overdosing or something's going on, so they like splash their face with cold water. Is that the idea there?
Yeah, I don't know that they know that. I think it's the thing they
Right.
in movies, but there is an actual like benefit to it. I've always
Gotcha.
washing my hands in really cold water and running my wrists under it has helped me ground. And some I also like heat, like a good like heat wrap, maybe one with some aromatherapy. I love lavender.
Mm,
Citrus is another really beautiful, lovely essence to enjoy, and it helps anxiety. Um,
mm,
you know, Getting that around a nice, warm, cozy thing around your neck and just breathing. Um, the most popular breathing technique is the 4-7-8 breathing technique, which can make you even like a little lightheaded, but it will also send the message to your vagus nerve that, oh, I'm in charge. We're okay. And that's literally like breathing in for 4 seconds, holding it for seven, and also like trying to sort of condense your body and sort of pressure yourself down for those 7 seconds and then 8 seconds of release.
mm.
Doing that maybe 2 or 3 times, taking a moment, seeing, do I need to do it more? Yes or no? And then just, doing it until, you feel the heart rate slow, you feel your breath return to more normal, you feel just a little better. Yeah, I see. I dump bottled water down my back whenever I yes, good call. Yep. I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
was gonna bring that up.
gonna work. Like,
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. That sounds like a wild thing to have to do while you're driving, but man, I imagine your nervous system doesn't really care what you're doing in the moment.
nope. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm so sorry that happened. Like I've had that happen. It is horrible. I've my panic attacks. I have left places without telling anyone. Like I'll be sleeping over at a friend's house, and this thankfully was many years ago. And throughout the night, I will have panic attacks. I would just leave, and I would drive
Mm,
home to Connecticut from like New Jersey at
mm,
3 and 4 in the morning. It was torture. It's absolutely torturous. So I wish I had known about the hot and cold stuff when I was younger. Like finding all this stuff out now, I'm like, well, gee, thanks.
mm.
Um,
Yeah. Right.
and
Yeah,
also
that
let
makes
me read
sense.
about it. So
Yeah. So how did you, this is actually something we talked a lot about this is something my university in general emphasizes, but this is something we talked about in class as well, is that, people come to to get help and they're coming from very different backgrounds, cultural, racial, social, economic, etc. And all of that brings baggage. And if you're not aware of that, you could, even do something by accident, even just looking at the person straight in the eyes might be an issue. And so, how did you adjust your practice and methods depending on those factors?
I mean, there's definitely courses that teach you about like accepting gifts and how you're not allowed to, but certain cultures, if you don't, it's a huge insult. Um,
Hmm.
I think, a lot of it, like in working with the kids that I worked with that were in residential placement, on their way to or from detention or the hospital, and they've really been through it, and they, generally grew up in places that I was clueless about. And having them bring me into those places, and it just made it really important to me to always be respectful, like, and meet people where they're at, judge nothing. I'm not from that culture. I don't know. I am no one to comment on anybody. You know what I mean? Like, just having the attitude of not knowing. I know that I don't know, so tell me about it. But there are some things that I think, I absolutely love working with people of color from all over the world, but like also totally support and get that, like, the white lady therapist might not be the right fit for everyone. And that's
Yeah.
okay. Like, I think people have, you know, the right and the responsibility to themselves to, like, say, hey, this is not a good fit for me, or like, you're really nice, but culturally, like, we're so different. I would feel better if I had someone from my own culture, in which case I'd be like, yeah, heck yeah, let's get you some referrals, man. Like, ego has to stay out of it. It's something to do with me. It's not about me personally, it's about the person, you know? So
Yeah.
it's just important to just recognize, like, yeah, I come up from a really privileged, squishy background. And um, yeah, I love learning and hearing about other people's, but I strongly encourage them to go where they feel understood, because the last thing I'd ever want to do is hurt somebody.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And I know there's conversations going on about including therapists and psychologists from different backgrounds because it is. I heard some statistics about it from a African American therapist, but like the pool is so limited once you get outside of white people. Not that white people are a problem, of course, or that we don't need white therapists, but it's just there isn't enough like black therapists and so on and so forth for other people who might want that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely an important thing there. So healing. We obviously all of us have some healing to do. So help us understand, how does unresolved trauma typically show up in those in romantic relationships when there is something that isn't healed, and maybe even the person doesn't know that it's not healed, but it shows up anyway, and unfortunately, a lot of times in romantic relationships.
Yeah, I think the fear of rejection, abandonment is an extremely powerful force. And in relationships, we test our partners. We need to know, especially if we have a trauma background, we need to know that they really can handle us, or, because
Mm,
it can be difficult. But unfortunately, that fear will act itself out in ways that, if you don't believe you're lovable, or if you believe your partner's going to leave you no matter what, you will act in ways that will ensure that happens.
mm,
Because our trauma wants to be right. It doesn't want to be happy. It doesn't want to feel safe. The it doesn't want anything but to know what to expect and not have to change anything. So a partner who believes that they are unlovable, or their partner is going to reject them, will potentially act in ways that could look very jealous, very controlling, argumentative, and you know, they may lie, they may sneak around, they may do things that would give their partner excellent reason to leave them. Because to the subconscious, if the partner leaves me because I cheated on them, well, then they're not really rejecting me as a person. It's because I cheated on them. So I have control here. I knew I was going to get rejected anyway. So I did the thing that I knew
mm,
was going to get me there the fastest, because I can't stand not knowing. I'm terrified. And
mm,
that fear would just rather we be in a place that we recognize and is our so-called comfort zone than risk really getting hurt. The comfort zone is a lie. It's not a happy place. It's not, for most people.
mm,
It's just a place where we know what to expect. So if we know to expect rejection and what that's going to feel like and look like, we may very well act in ways that will ensure that that happens. So that's, if you've been
Mm,
cheated on before, if your parents were divorced, or if you've been through a terrible divorce, or you've had a lot of rough relationships, like that can definitely be a thing.
yeah, I've that's very interesting that the trauma wants to be right.
Yeah.
Even whether it is or not, it wants to be, and people will adjust their behaviors and their speech and their life even to make it right. Yeah, that's very fascinating. And I know that I obviously have someone with a mom who's been through a lot, and people who've been through a lot. It is very hard to um for people to believe something that isn't told to them by their trauma. Yeah. So on that related note, then, how do we help them embrace a truth that uh, their trauma isn't telling them?
Through practice and consistency, really recognizing the behavior, calling it out for what it is, and allowing yourself to be held accountable, or holding yourself accountable, which can be really hard because the people pleasing response is deep within many, many, many of us. So holding other people accountable might feel terrible. It might be really scary and hard. So I'm seeing Elena, fear of being misunderstood turning into me not expressing myself would be that self-fulfilling prophecy. Of course, you're not going to be understood if you're not expressing yourself. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Then you're going to get that, oh, I feel misunderstood, and I'm going to go back into my shame spiral, and I'm going to feel the feelings that I expect to feel. And it's going to be awful. um,
mm,
so, like, this is just how things just show up. And recognizing that about yourself is a superpower, because when you know something like that, you can do something about it. That's a huge part of things, is recognizing and knowing, oh, that I know that I'm doing that thing. I'm doing it. Okay, let me do something different, and I'm owning it. And asking for your partner to hold you accountable, and promising that you hold them accountable if you see their trauma response is coming out in a loving and compassionate way. So that means you might not want to do it right in the moment. You might want to take some time, because they might have said or done a thing that really ticked you off. So don't do that when you're mad. Take a time
mm,
out and then go back and say, hey, can we talk about this? I noticed this. I just want to have a conversation with you about it. And that's kind of like that. The change is a gradual thing. And there's always going to be backsliding, and it's not
mm.
a pretty process generally. It's messy.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to learn that regarding attachment styles, because for a myriad of reasons, I'm anxiously attached. For a time, was with someone who was avoidant attached. So, if there was a problem that related to any, um, big T, small T traumas, there would be a shutting down and a moving away. And then I, being anxious, would be like, oh no, the world is ending. I need to, I need to go to them immediately. Um, and then obviously not to blame them, but because of that moving away and shutting down, and obviously I didn't know any of this I didn't realize any of this at the time until after it happened, and I had the language to like explain this experience. But afterwards, there wasn't a communication that like, hey, I need a break. Everything's fine. I promise. Like, give me that verbal affirmation. Like, everything's fine. I just need a break for a second. So there wasn't any of that, and so I was like in crisis mode all of a sudden because of that. And then I realized all this afterwards and was like, wow, I need to like rethink how I'm attaching to people because this is not fun. And one mistake in a relationship does not call for this response. Uh, and so, related to that, how can we begin to form secure attachments with people, even if we have never, uh, we've never experienced that kind of security ourselves?
Well, we are the we. It's about our relationship with ourselves. It's never really about the other person. Like
Mm,
90% of the way other people treat us has nothing to do with us. And recognizing that and depersonalizing their behaviors can go a very far long way, because when you learn to ground yourself and comfort yourself and know that, like, hey, yeah, this really hurts, but I'm not going to die. It's,
mm,
my house is not going to fall on me. Um, that can go a far long way too, and just knowing how to calm your own anxiety, and get yourself to a place where you can go have that conversation, and you can, allow your partner to say, yeah, you know what, I totally shut down. It's what I do, and it's not about you. It's just the only way I know how to regulate myself, or because I know I'm going to say something really, really mean. If I don't, I run, because fight or flight, right? It's just part of everything. And the partner that's running away and the partner that's chasing them, that dynamic is as old as time.
mm-hmm.
so,
Right.
so yeah, recognizing, like, well, they're shutting themselves down and they're doing their coping skills. I'm going to do mine. I'm going to let them do what they need to do so that I will do what I need to do, so that when we come back together, we actually can be curious and, kind to each other. We might not agree, whatever, but like that, attachment styles vary widely, but the attachment we have inside ourselves to know that I'm okay and I can take care of me. I don't, no one needs, it's lovely to have someone take care of me, but I
Mm,
ultimately know that the power is in my hands. um, that goes a far long way, because the fear of being alone is terrifying, but also recognizing, like, hey, I have this family with me, and I have these friends, and I have this community, and I'm really not alone. Um, can also go a far long way.
yeah, absolutely. Uh, Elena says we can extend as much compassion to someone else as we can extend to ourselves. It's all internal. Yeah, absolutely. I think,
So we're nicer to other people. We are way more compassionate with other people than we are with ourselves.
yeah, yeah, 100%. There was um, that's really interesting, and I like that you bring up the idea like this is your responsibility, right? As much as like any of this that you're dealing with sucks, and then of course you have community and that, and we don't want to be um, individualistic, you might say, about our own mental health, but it is also your responsibility to do what you need to do to adjust as best you can. Yeah, that's whatever that might look like for you. So yeah, very interesting there. I have a friend who stated this like at one point, like she's like, I firmly believe that my mental and emotional states are my own responsibility. So it's going to be very rare. It's going to be very rare that she tells anyone else about it. See you, Elena. Thank you so much for joining us for this stream. Um, but it's gonna be rare that she like, informs a lot of other people about it until maybe after the fact, because of that. So and very interesting, and I definitely respect that there. So was there among all of the clients that you had, was there any common turning point that occurred where like once this thing happened, usually they were able to do a 180 and begin healing.
Kind of, yeah, a lot of it really does, like, come with EMDR. Once we clear out those neural pathways and get the subconscious the information that it needs, um, they feel better. Because EMDR really is you taking what you already know and putting it where it needs to go. Like, I, as your therapist, can tell you all day long, it's not your fault. Of course, you're lovable, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It's not getting into the subconscious. And this stuff
Yeah.
needs to come from you. So when you able, or meditation is a good tool for that. When people really start to go inward and really, connect deeply with their inner child and all of that, as cliche as it might sound, it's a real thing. Like, we all have a
Yeah.
little living inside of us, and we have to take care of that kid. and finding that kid, recognizing like how old are they, what do they need, how can I meet their needs, and let them off the hook essentially for all the stuff they're holding themselves accountable for. That's when you start to see people go, oh, I have more energy. Oh, I cleaned my room. Oh, I cooked dinner. I really started to go back out with my friends. Those are generally the kind of turning points. There's no special amount of time it can take. I usually work with people for, 6 months to a year, but some people I've known 15, 20 years. I mean, I have people that I saw when they were kids and they're now in their 30s and we're
Hmm.
still in touch. So it's just everything changes. That's the only thing we can count on in life. Your situation is going to change, your circumstances are going to change. And so like just getting people through one thing to the next thing and giving them that self-confidence to know that like I'm going to be okay. I might not be the greatest, but I'm going to be okay. And once those anxiety symptoms dissipate and that the depression lifts from just the consistent talk therapy and coping skills and consistency, that's when they can go, oh, okay, all right, yeah, I feel better. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So of course, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so really glad to be doing this stream in May. But June is also going to be Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, with obviously, I believe Men's Mental Health Week being like June 9th through the 12th, because it ends on Father's Day, something like that. Um, and then uh, so, in lieu of that question, or in lieu of all of that, I'm wondering if you have seen a pattern or a way in which that men and women have processed their traumas differently.
yeah, I think you can definitely see, men want to solve it, they want to fix it, they want to sort of wrap it up with a nice bow or put it in a box or whatever. And women tend to like take it more into like personally, emotionally, um, sort of examine it. Where did I go wrong? Why did I think this? Why did I feel that? So I do think, both men and women are 100% capable of healing from trauma, but you just sort of have to recognize the male brain is more of a solve it and the female brain is more of a process it and process. And it's not 100%, not 100. There's no such thing as 100%. Um,
Hmm.
but there are things like just the influence of media, our families, the world telling us what's manly and what's womanly and what's appropriate for either guys or girls, or you should be this way or you should be that way. The world gives us all of this like messaging, and a lot
Hmm.
of it is not even said out loud, it's just implied, and it just like it's
Hmm.
absorbed into our consciousness, and we just sort of believe these things passively. We might not even realize that they're floating around, but I think it is important to call those things out. I mean, you learn that, and you know, where did you get the idea that men can't talk about their feelings? Because if you're here in your therapy and you're talking about your feelings, clearly you're capable, and you
Hmm.
wanted to. So what's up with
Yeah.
that? So yeah, I think men do get a bad rap because people are like, oh, they don't know what to do, or they don't know how to talk. Da, da, da. No, not true. They probably just benefit from someone who listens and says, hey, where'd you get that's a little, what do you mean you can't cry? That's not allowed. And then they go, oh, right. Yeah. That's a lesson I didn't ask for. That's, something
Hmm.
I didn't agree to. It's just a thing that I absorbed. And maybe I could let it go once I know it's here.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And in relation to that, have you um ever experienced with uh a male client that maybe like once they come around to that and they do start like search doing that introspective work, there's a lot of anger, and that maybe gets expressed in the in the work in the sessions, in the therapy sessions?
It's funny. I hear about their anger more than I see it. Um,
Mm,
you know what I mean? Like they describe it to me, but when they're talking to me, they're calm, they're rational. They may get upset, and they may even find themselves crying in the office. I've had a lot of men really just let it go in the office. So that anger,
mm,
um, that comes from a place of hurt. Anger is a part of us that does not want to be treated badly. It does not
mm,
accept poor or abusive treatment. So it's not a bad thing. It has a bad rap, but it's a bodyguard emotion that keeps us from feeling the more icky, vulnerable feelings. If you're angry, you're not feeling hurt or scared or rejected or small. You're just angry and you're big and you're strong and you're puffed up. And you don't
mm,
feel all that shit. But then the anger wears off generally. And now what do you do? So,
mm,
that's the point at which I tend to, meet my male clients is, okay, I've had this angry outburst. I broke my hand. I smashed my truck, whatever. And it's like, okay, well, what was hurting you? Like what was really going on? What made you feel that way? And recognizing that, oh yeah, it's deeper than I was just mad.
yeah, gotcha. So, I'm curious, have you had a case that has like stayed with you and is like absolutely like ingrained in you that you remember from long ago?
Oh yeah, I have a few. Most of them involve my mistakes.
Oh,
Things I wish I had done differently. Um, and that, yeah, I can't
do you
say
have
I've
a
never.
do you have a particular example that you can give?
Well, yeah, it was many, many years ago, and I think I don't even know. It was the '90s still, I think. No, it couldn't have been, but it was a long time ago. And I had this client that I really, really liked, and she came from an absolutely like astoundingly traumatic life, like just abandoned by parents, left by the wayside, had to make her way through the world and the system. Grew up in and out of care, but was always like good kid, good grades, committed to doing the right thing, like never went down the paths of like drugs or like, bad relationships with bad men, like just sort of like stayed the course, did everything right, met and fell in love with this guy. They have two kids and things just fall apart. The guy's family is insane. He's awful. Like it was shocking
Mm,
like how bad this was. And it was a woman of color and a white man and his
mm,
family. And his family just like took over this poor woman and she was judged by the system for having grown up in care. Something they don't tell you. If you come up in foster care or whatever and you ever get like a child protective services case or whatever, and they find that out about you, your life is going to be miserable, completely miserable.
mm,
They're absolutely going to hold it against you, and they're going to treat you like a second-rate human being for having been in care. So there was a complaint from the father's side saying mother is too. We think she is a hypochondriac, or she's doing too much medical stuff with the kid, and it turned into a whole disaster where they accused her of Munchausen's syndrome, which she
mm,
did not have. Munchausen's syndrome by proxy. So Munchausen's is when you make yourself sick and call attention to yourself medically so that you get the attention of doctors and nurses in healthcare. Munchausen's by proxy is when you make someone else sick, your child typically, so that you get all the attention and the sympathy and the support of
mm.
having a sick kid. And there's been some pretty interesting movies about that in the past few years. That like currently the names of the movies are escaping my mind, but there have been some very famous Munchausen's cases.
Mm,
So she did not have that. And we had doctors lined up from Yale all over the place to tell the judge eventually, like, no, this was appropriate. And the judge at one point had denied the request that the kids be removed from the mother. And DCF went ahead and took them anyway. And I was in the office as DCF was taking the kids anyway. And I was like, but the judge said no. And they were like,
Mm.
yeah, just meet us at the father's house. And it never occurred to me to say, no, we're going to the lawyer's office, because we went to the father's house and the mother is sobbing. And I'm like, I don't understand the problem. Like, we're just going to talk about going forward.
Oh, so you had a different impression than what ended up actually happening. Okay.
Yeah. And it became a years long battle to get those kids back.
So you were like heavily involved like in that legal
Oh, yeah. I've
case.
testified in court many a time. Part of being a therapist is knowing that you're going to get subpoenaed. If you work with kids, it's going to happen. Like, it's going to happen. And that's why
So
I don't work with kids as much anymore, because no, thank you.
so being subpoenaed, does that mean like being called to talk in court about what's going on?
Yeah. Typically, the court does try to work with the therapist and not make it too hard for them. So they'll have us submit our notes and our reports, and
Mm,
speak with them and provide sometimes a letter uh, to address the situation. They try not to make us testify, because for me to lose a day of work waiting in a courthouse to go talk, and I have no control over how long is this going to go on for.
right. And you have other people that need you and
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but we are told very clearly as therapists being trained is like, don't put anything in your notes that you wouldn't be comfortable talking about. Like, just keep them simple. Don't say, like, just keep it simple, and
Interesting.
it has to be signed by a judge, because sometimes lawyers will subpoena you and they'll just have it signed by their own clerk or whatever, and that's not a legal document that they can enforce. The only kind of document that can be enforced is signed by a judge. So
Mm.
that too, because people will try to suck therapists into their divorce cases and their child custody cases a lot, and it's a trick that they use to get you to show up thinking you have to, and you don't.
Oh,
um,
interesting.
but yeah, so I feel like I completely failed that mom, and let them take the kids, and it didn't really, I didn't understand really what was happening. And in retrospect, I would 100% have told that DCF worker to kiss my ass for going to the attorney's office, and you got a no from the judge. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that is a wild situation. I love hearing the stories though. Uh obviously, I've been um I've been in counseling as well and, said a lot of things and I would obviously see my counselor taking notes or whatever. My counselor's doing stuff and I'm always like, what exactly are you writing down? And what are you choosing not to write down? And like what is the reasoning behind that? You know what I mean? And I feel like that's what a lot of people wonder. So quick side tangent, I'm curious. What is what is that process like? What are you writing down and what are you choosing not to and why?
Yeah, mine are somewhat specific. Like, I'll write quotes that I think are interesting, and kind of like mention or write in like anxiety response, or address with EMDR, address with meditation. Um, yeah, just the basics, like, oh, client came in, updated on the divorce and where they're at in the process, and attorney has said this and their attorney has said that, and reaction was this, and desired result is this, goal that we have we made any progress towards that? And that's pretty much like all I'll write. Like, some people will literally write every single word you say. They'll record it, they'll like type it out. I was taught not to do that. I was taught to keep it
Mm.
very simple. And if you do get called into court, you're more than welcome, because you're going to remember. You're more than welcome to answer questions and provide a letter or whatever. But like, yeah, because therapist notes are meant to be read by therapists, and having them read by lawyers and lay people never goes well.
Mm.
Like,
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So, as I noted previously in this live, and as I believe you noted as well, you are a former therapist. So you have stepped away from the practice, but are there still therapeutic insights that you use in your personal life, your relationships, your daily life, those sorts of things?
Oh yeah, that's forever ingrained. Like, I'm still doing therapy through coaching. I'm just
Right.
away from insurance panels, understanding and recognizing that your confidentiality, if you are using your insurance, they own those notes. They own your file, not you, not me. They do. So you have things that you want to address that you know will get you kicked off your insurance. And there's a chance that your, therapist is going to write that down and the insurance company is going to see it, such as you have problems with self-injury, or you're struggling with, your job, or you're struggling with substances. There are some insurance companies that will deny you life insurance if you have certain things. So
And they can see the therapist notes?
they can request them at any time, and we have to share them.
Interesting.
So if you get into like a dispute with your insurance company and they decide we want all of your medical records from everything, theoretically they would get your therapy notes. And who cares that your cholesterol has been this for 5 years and your heart rate is this, and like you have all these other, well, you use alcohol too much, or you smoke tobacco even. That can be reason for them to deny it. So to me, I in this day and age of privacy being, almost impossible and more important than it's ever been, I would rather just keep it simple with people. Let's do coach. We'll call it coaching, and we'll stay more client focused, more present focused. And your notes are your notes. You're just going to pay me my fee, and that's it. I will give them to you if you want them. I will set them on fire if you want me to.
Hmm.
You are in control, and that's, I think, important more and more as we see how we know how awful the insurance companies are. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. We know they're terrible. So I prefer to protect people from that. So I retired the license after over 20 years. I had one complaint, and the response to it was so abysmal from the state. I let a homeless gay man stay with me. He was injured, he was sick, and it was the pandemic, and there were no homeless shelters open. But unfortunately, he's a very mentally ill individual. So he complained against me to the state when I wouldn't give him money. And they were like, yeah, you can keep your license for like $5,000 and 3 years of probation, and you're going to have to hire a supervisor. And I was like, I've been doing this for 20 years. Okay. I don't need to take your classes on dual relationships. I've never said this was a good idea. I just felt really bad for this person and chose to help them out. And it was the wrong person to help. And so take the license. I'm just going to carry on, and I'm going to protect myself and others from the hazards of, the insurance companies, because yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do without it, but I feel better now.
Got you. Got you. So, what do you miss the most about how you used to do? I guess what you are continuing to do through coaching. I assume the insurance is what you don't miss at all. So, we got that out of the way. But what would you say you?
I miss that people got help paying for services. Like, it's really hard to do out of pocket. So even if I lower my rates, I have a whole sliding scale. But I miss that people weren't as worried about the money. Other than that, I don't miss them.
Mm. Gotcha. Gotcha. So, if you could give a piece of advice to someone healing from trauma, relationship issues, what would that be?
Be gentle with yourself. Like, recognize your self-talk. If you are saying hurtful, mean things to yourself, you're going to feel like crap. Your brain doesn't know, like I said, it doesn't know real or imagine. So if you're calling yourself stupid or weak or pathetic or whatever, you're going to feel terrible. So notice your self talk and change it. Even if you just recognize when it's happening, imagine a stop sign and change direction. Um, See how that changes how you feel and recognize that like your perspective is your reality, but it's not everyone's reality, and that's okay. So just and get and talk to somebody. Don't believe those old tropes about therapies for weak people or crazy people or whatever. No, you don't have to be in a mental health crisis to go to therapy. In fact, when you're feeling pretty good is a great time to go to therapy. Because when you're in crisis, all you're going to do is focus on the crisis. When you're feeling okay, you can focus on those early childhood issues. You can focus on those traumas because you're not a
Mm,
you can't heal when you're a wreck. So,
right.
talk to somebody and get some regulation, get some coping skills, get some validation, and just start there. Just notice when you're being mean to yourself and try to change that pattern.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So I'm curious. I wanted to end on a bit of a positive note. So, I want to know if you had a particular case that you were able to talk about of a person that, obviously healing is a very long journey and possibly lifelong journey, but someone who made vast amounts of improvement uh, through therapy and was able to, say, come out of the trauma and the relationship that was broken or that sort of thing.
Yeah, I had a really, really fascinating, interesting gentleman who came again, from a really rough background and a lot of neglect in childhood, a lot of like abusive things, and had unfortunately gotten involved with drugs and started holding up some banks and to deal with the habit, and became a really very angry person and was incarcerated for several years. And I met them after they were out. They had been out for a few months. It was pretty recent, and through talk therapy and a lot of spiritual guidance, actually, and sort of alternative guidance. He went through crisis after and really had a hard time, and so I connected with the spouse and worked together to like just hold space and keep him safe, and do everything I could to keep him out of hospital, out of any type of place that he would not feel free, because a person who's been incarcerated, having their freedom taken from them is deeply traumatic. So the last thing I want to do is re-traumatize this person. So it
Hmm.
was a lot of just holding space as they went through their crisis, and reassurance and validation and safety checks, and kind of permission really to use the medicine and use the things that were most meaningful to him, and to address something with his family, and to let himself off the hook that like yeah, you did some stuff that wasn't great, but that you were in addiction, you were in full-blown addiction, and you've been clean for this long. And watching him really reach out and become a speaker to other incarcerated individuals or to
Mm.
people in crisis, like just encouraging that commitment to himself, his spirituality, his family, his a beautiful child, just all the things that came to him immediately, like very soon after going through such a trauma. Like he's become like a spiritual like guide. He's like held down an awesome job. He is living life with his family. He's living really authentically. He's going to all sorts of trainings, and I believe he's going to change the world in some way, shape, or form. Like writing, a lot of amazing writer, brilliant person who really like
Mm.
could have. It was touch and go. It was we're getting the calls at midnight. We're taking the calls all around the clock every single day of the week. I don't even care. Just to get
Mm,
through that task. And like, yeah, he's flying on his own. He graduated. He's,
mm-hmm.
he's welcome to reach out at any time. I'm inspired and by him genuinely. So yeah, that definitely. If someone can come from that, and now be living this like beautiful truth, um, like that's what really, that's pretty great.
Yeah, that is absolutely awesome. Well, thank you so much, Erin, for joining me for this. Guys, do you have anything you want to plug? Actually, I should ask.
Yeah, I have written a couple books. They are mushroom related. Not, I believe all mushrooms are magical. I actually use a lion's mane tincture to help my anxiety. Lion's mane is a mushroom that's neuroregenerative. It's non-psychedelic. It is something you can eat. And you can buy the supplements at like Whole Foods or whatever, but I use the sacred mushrooms .com because their tinctures are made with vegetable glycerin, which is sweet and gentle, versus tinctures made with alcohol, which are bitter and harsh and they burn. And so I've written books on magical mushrooms as well, how to do them and what to do after. So one of them is called Modern Mushroom Medicine Made Easy. The other one is called I Got High, Now What Do I Do? Yeah.
I love I love those titles. They're so good.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have this whole I want people to know how to do stuff without shame and without guilt and without gatekeeping. Here, there's the basics, and this is the history, and this is, by the way, sacred indigenous medicine. So please be respectful. And
Mm,
what are you going to do after? Like everyone talks about this big exciting thing that happens, yeah, but like you get a lot of information and perspective shifts, and you're actually generating your neuroplasticity. So like integrating that into your life. So that's they're basically, one is for before, one is for after. And follow me here on TikTok, please. It's been a struggle.
yeah.
And I'm not the most consistent, but I'm like, what did you say? Variety content. I think I fall into
Hmm.
that category. I'm ADHD, and
Yeah.
so I talk about everything. And I'm focusing right now on just being zen and appreciating nature. And so I'm putting up these like beautiful videos from when I go walking.
Mm.
Yeah, like you follow me here, Instagram. It's Erin S. Doolittle everywhere you go. And yeah, check out the books on Amazon, or feel free to message me if you've got questions.
Do you have any YouTube presence? Is that something you're planning or?
It's been in the like, I should do it. There's like one video of me from like 2019 telling people how to get a medical card in Connecticut. I was a provider for that. I certified patients for 6 years in CTMMP. Uh,
Gotcha.
so that's like it. I should, yeah, I know I need to like learn more about that. See, that's age difference. Like I've never YouTubed, but it's totally like something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a part. Yeah, it is part of my like earliest memories of well, my middle school memories, I should say, of having a phone was yeah, going on YouTube and watching my favorite YouTubers. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I think it's really cool that we can do this stuff and that you can continue to help people. I think uh if I wasn't trying to do the career path that I'm trying to do right now, I would have probably become a therapist, counselor, psychologist, so somewhere down that train where where I was able to listen to people and listen to people's stories and help them. That's like all I wanted to do since I was a kid. So, uh,
It's fascinating. People are fascinating.
yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to check out my YouTube channel where you can see my most recent video revisiting cool math games. That was a trip. and my YouTube membership stuff as well. You can also go into my TikTok shop since you're already here, of course. And you can check out both nerdy and Christian products that are there for your viewing and buying pleasure. Uh, Thank you so much. Thank you again, Erin, for joining me for this and sharing your expertise. Is there anything you'd like to say before you go?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Anytime, anytime. Thanks. I appreciate you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Uh, Thank you again for watching, and you guys have a very good day.